Welcome to the I Am the Worst Parent Ever podcast with Nicole Merritt and Dr. Robert Zeitlin.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, Nicole. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Did you ever consider that you might have a spirited child?
Oh, yes. So much that I've actually written about it. Yeah, I wrote an article a while back called, I think I titled it, Riding the Wave, from Intensity to Insanity to the Brink of Serenity, because I literally feel like I run that gamut every day with at least one, if not all three of my children.
I didn't actually know when I asked that if you'd written about that. That's funny. I haven't seen that one. And now I have to look it up.
Yeah, and I referenced Raising Your Spirited Child, one of the books that I kind of read to help me deal with that. How about you? How do you suggest dealing with a problem child? And is it wrong to call them a problem?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking so much a problem as like, I was remembering a time before we had kids when my brother-in-law had kids, and I was watching them, my parents-in-law, my father-in-law deal with one of these kids who was pretty spirited. And at some point he's like trying to like get the kid to do something he wanted to do, and the kid was having none of it. And my father-in-law said through gritted teeth, "That kid has a will of iron." And I'm like, I want him to say that about my kid one day. Like that's a goal. Like, if I could have a strong-willed kid, a spirited kid, a kid who sort of like worked from their gut, that would be a win.
I so hear you on that. And I guess that's where we struggle sometimes. Like in my moments of frustration, I think that my child is intentionally being a pain in the booty. You know, they are intentionally trying to drive mommy nuts and cause problems. But the truth is, I'm not seeing their full potential and how I could harness some of that strong-willed behavior, right?
Right, or the challenge that they're giving you, like the practice that you're getting.
Right. You know what? You just reminded me, and I can't remember, in one of my blogging groups, if you don't follow Her View from Home on Facebook, you should. It's an amazing group of supportive women, but somebody, and I can't remember who, and I'm so sorry to them, just recently had this quote, and it was that your child is who they are to make you who you are. Mm-hmm. And you just totally made me think of that.
Wow. That's amazing. Like that captures it completely.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
you think that you need to change all these negative things about your child, which when you look at them in a whole new light, they're not negative, and they're pushing you to be a better version of yourself. Wow.
So what did you come up with in terms of the spirited child? What was the title of the post again?
It was From Intensity, I think, to Insanity to the Brink of Serenity. That sometimes the challenges seem so intense. And for me, somebody who gets more anxious and just, you know, has that kind of, I get overwhelmed very easily. It can really quickly make me like, oh my God, he's acting up. I'm in the library. What am I going to do? You know, and freak out to where I feel like, you know, oh, I got to scoop him up. We got to leave, you know. And then, but if I can rein myself in, rein that thinking in, and just even take a second to kind of like connect or get on his level, you know, 2 seconds later, he's this extremely loving, now we're in this serene, peaceful moment. And it all can happen in the matter of 2 minutes.
Right. I have a separate question about that, which is like, how much do you worry about like if there was no one else around, how much would this be a problem? Like, how much is it bothering you what impression you're giving as a parent, or kind of like, not people pleasing, but like not people pissing off?
Right. No, I hear you. I mean, I am definitely, I don't think that I've ever yelled, unless like there was a safety issue. I don't think I've ever yelled at my children in public, but 100% like
in public.
I yell in the home. And with summertime, like sometimes the windows will be open and I'll forget, and I'm like, oh no, this neighbor is gonna give me this guy when I walk out because I'm the worst mom ever. But no, I mean, I think and that's part of the problem, right? I'm a different mom when nobody else is around, just my kids, than if I am at the library or we're in the middle of public. So why am I putting on that show, And I don't think it's that I'm intentionally putting on a show. It's just, I don't know. It's easier to lose your you-know-what inside of your own home. It's your safe zone.
It's safe to lose my blank here.
That's totally going to be like a new little...
Right. A new momism.
Home, where you can lose your...
Home. The place where you can lose your blank.
Yeah. We're making that later.
And your kids probably know there's a difference too. Like what they can get away with outside the house, what they can get away with inside. But also like who's it for? Like I think about like a friend of mine who I was in school with. She had started school before she had kids, and then she finished school when her kids were teenagers. This is graduate school. And at the beginning, she said, I was doing it because if I failed, what would I tell my mom? And she said, now, if I fail, what am I going to tell my kids? Like, who are we doing this for? Like, who are we dressing up for? Who are we watching our tongues for? Like, are we worried about our kids? Are we worried about other people? Are we worried about it getting back to like our parents, the internet, our spouse? I don't know.
Right. Well, and sometimes, I mean, honestly, on both sides of the fence, sometimes I'm out and I see somebody, and I'm not trying to judge them, but I'm watching them and I see them interacting and I'm like, maybe I wouldn't have done it like that. Right. And I think a little negatively, but then sometimes they inspire me. Sometimes I'm about to lose my shiitake and then I see somebody handling her child just so calmly. And it's like, okay, I can do this. She's doing it right there. Let me take a cue. Let me get down on my knee. Let me look him in the eye or her in the eye and go from there. So sometimes our, who we think are our worst critics can actually kind of lead us to try something else out.
Mm-hmm. I think it probably could work both ways too. When you see someone else just on the brink of the edge and you're like, okay, it's not that bad. Like I can pull this back. Right.
And we're not always willing to actually verbally admit that to one another. So us being our authentic selves out in public, we're helping each other out by just doing that.
Yeah, but you also mentioned, and I think this is worth thinking about, is like our storms come in and go at a certain pace. Our kids' storms, like you said, you pull your son out of that situation, and moments later, he's this loving sort of like things change. Like the pace of their lives is so much quicker, and they get over things. Like we said before, they're quicker to forgive and forget and like move on, but also like they're processing things at a different level. Like how much are we like old and slow and unable to like pivot and like move on and like get over things, and like how much are we like playing out yesterday's problem today with our kids?
Right. My article that went live this morning was a quick short one, but it was just like, stop being so hard on yourself and those that you love. Like I don't let my children be slow to rise in the morning. It's like, get up. Mommy said, get up, whereas I know that I can take time. Like, why are they not allowed to wake up on the wrong side of the bed? But it's more than fine for me to. Like, they have human emotions just like us, and theirs are actually bigger and more important than ours. So I know it's tough though when you're in the midst of it all and the housework and the this and the that, to remember those things, but it's something we have to remember, be conscious of.
Yeah, it's hard. They're moving parts in your life. They're also have their own lives and they have their own moving parts, but like while they're dependent and they need things from you. They're moving parts that need to get in line to some degree in order for things to move forward. For you to be able to parent all of them, not to mention to move everything forward that needs to happen, from the dogs to the house to the camp drop off to all of it.
Right. Now, when you meet with families, either children or the parents or everybody together, do they ever look for like actionable steps to change their perspective? Like, do you offer up, you got a parent and she's just like, my child is a terror, I can't stand them. What do I do?
I think that's a great question. And it actually hits on one aspect of this spirited / challenging child that we don't often think about, because the answer to your question is often parents come in to see me with their kids and they're like, can you give him some ideas of what he can do when he's losing his shiitake? Like how can he help manage, how can you give him tools or tips to manage his feelings and emotions? And once we do that and we get around to like, now you, mom, like she's like, no, I got this. Like, how much do we take care of ourselves like that?
Right. And it's funny, and like in the scenario in the beginning, when you think it's all about your child and it's what they need to fix and they're intentionally causing you the problem and what can they do? And it's like, no, you have a whole role in this. Like when you were just saying that, I thought you were going to say that you were going to tell her, okay, here's the tools for you.
Right.
And I can totally see a parent sitting there being flabbergasted. Like, what do you mean?
No, we eventually get around to it. And that's why, when I wrote a book for parents, I didn't write, here's what you do to your kids or for your kids, here's what you do for yourself so you can, raise these kick-blank kids that can change the world, but it starts with you. So yeah, when I do have that mom and that son on the couch and they're, asking for tips and tricks, eventually we do get around to like, let's talk about like how this affects you and what you can do differently. Like you said, your mindset, because I think it's hard to approach these things from like when you're triggered and when your blood starts to boil, it's hard to like come to it from an inside out place. What my son's going to do, what my son's doing right now, I might not have any control over.
Right.
But what my son's going to do next is completely dictated by my reaction to it. And so if I can somehow manage that reaction or do something about that, then I might be able to change this whole dynamic and change it in a different direction.
Right. And even if you take the time while both of you are calm to work out a system, whether it's one you wrote down or it's a code word or whatever, like little Johnny is getting bad and you're like, Johnny, bananas, and he knows banana means to, whatever, chill out, be mushy. And then he has one that he says to you. I can almost guarantee you'll probably both start laughing and then that'll diffuse the situation. But I mean, I know it's so much easier said than done that when my son water triggers me today, I'm not going to say bananas, but you know what? Maybe I'll try it and you can ask me.
There's something about saying it out loud and practicing it that works. And I think laughing is the key or a key. It can really diffuse. The first time I came across laughing as a tool was actually someone who came to me having dealt with like major anxiety for a long time. In fact, panic attacks. So not just anxiety, but like debilitating attacks. And the two things that he had figured out, and this was actually like a kid on his way to becoming like a major college athlete. The two things he had figured out was how to change the channel, which used to happen like this. I know it happens with the clicker now, but change the channel, like actually like stop thinking about this and think about that. And the other thing was to think of the silliest, stupidest thing he had thought of recently, just to eke out the smallest little giggle of laughter, because it can literally change the weather. It can open the window. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. The first thing you made me think was, by the way, soon enough, we're going to be able to think about the channel changing and it's actually going to change. We're not even going to need, our app or whatever.
I know, it'll be right behind our ear.
Yeah, but no, I just, I haven't published it yet, but I basically wrote an article on where has everybody's sense of humor gone. I write satire pieces about men and my husband all the time. And I can't tell you how many men read them and get mad at me. And I'm like, how can you not read that like as a joke, like as, I'm just being funny. Like my husband's laughing. He's not offended.
Right.
But just where has everybody's sense of humor gone? And I know that there's, the political climate and the this and the that and everything. I get it. But like there's time for serious and then there's time for fun. And if you don't have that balance and use humor as your tool, then, or like you said, a tool, just at least one of your tools, then I think that you're in for a depressing life. Like who wants to feel like that all the time?
No, I think we're hitting on what will be the next forefront of mental health, which is, we already talked about laughter being good medicine. They've been talking about that for years. Positive psychology. And, I wrote a book called Laugh More, Yell Less. So I'm clearly on this page, but I think there's a whole balancing act. Like you just said, if you're laughing, how can you be depressed? Like, I think not light crowds out dark, but if you laugh more, you're not going to start yelling less, but just there's going to be a higher ratio of laughing and positivity. It just changes the whole dynamic.
Is there something called laugh therapy, or can we like coin that?
I think there's laugh therapy. I think there's smile therapy. I honestly don't believe in it so much. I actually think, like I suggest in my book and other things, that you actually need to create that positivity from the inside out.
Yeah, not just this random force. It has to be something that you can generate on your own when needed. I
mean, I wrote something, and I'll probably send it out soon, of like, you can just start laughing maniacally and just like, be the crazy person in line at the supermarket. But, those people who walk around with a smile on their face or can find the funny, in those moments, are just healthier than like this sort of automatic behavioral, like flip on a smile kind of, know.
Right. So you just made me think of, so you know how I set up my little lamp, right? So I have this light here that people see. Everybody look, there's my lamp. My daughter, a few minutes ago, I was in another room, and all of a sudden I hear crash, and she walked right into it and knocked it down. My first reaction was, weren't you paying attention? Like the cord is like hanging like across. Like, didn't you see it? And then I was like, what are you doing? Like, it's just a mistake. She had an accident, whatever. And so we started laughing about it. Before she walked out the door to go to her camp, I knocked it down. Like, as I was saying bye to them, I'm like, bye. And I walked right in. My husband just shaking his head, like, take your own advice.
It's like those movies where they're like, you're going to walk by and knock that over. And you're like, no, I'm not. And then you stumble on it. It's the way things were set up to be.
Right. But it's your perspective. Like, look, you're thinking, there's my, problem child knocking over the lamp to piss me off and make it hard for me to do my podcast. No, she made a mistake. She was distracted, just like I am 90% of the time. The same reason I leave my van door open, the same reason I lose my keys. So we need to go a little easier on ourselves and our children.
Yeah, just closing this chapter on laugh therapy, or whatever we're going to call this. I think it's a fine line between like tragedy and slapstick. The lamp falling over can be the worst thing ever. Oh my gosh, how did this happen? Or it can be like just goofy and silly, and you can laugh at it. It's amazing how much comedy comes out of slapstick, and it's so much healthier to be able to laugh about it.
Yeah, more laughter and less tears, everybody, me included.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, take care.
Thank you for listening to the I Am the Worst Parent Ever podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss an episode.